So let's talk about we'll talk about the UNS and challenges to the UNS first. So I think the UNS is a great thing. I'm an advocate of a UNS, specifically for the availability of last known values and adding additional context to the structure of your data. We used to see this a lot on the historian side, right? Organizations would try to standardize a namespace or a naming structure that had universal appeal across not just one area or one site, but ideally across all sites. It's important. Driving standardization and modeling at the edge is a valid mission for an organization. There's no question about that. When I think about the unified namespace, one of the first things that I have to think about is, will this data model live everywhere forever? So let's just play a game real quick, or play through a scenario. I have a PLC. I've got that PLC publishing out MQTT, and I've been very careful when I created the IO on the data points on the PLC to follow my UNS naming strategy. Hits the broker. I've got a historian subscribed to that namespace, and it's historizing off the broker. If I ever modify my naming convention, if I ever do a version 2 upgrade of that naming convention, what happens to all of the tags on that PLC if I go back and reprogram the name? If I change the name, or if I abstract the name before it hits the broker, what happens to my history?
There's a mismatch, right?
Yeah, I start the day I change that name, I get a new tag. And I no longer am able to link one tag to the next, one tag to the other in the historian. The reality is there's no one's going to nail their naming convention right once and for all for everything. So that's the challenge, right? I have to solve for that. Second challenge is that I don't have the luxury of only having greenfield sites. So I've got existing systems that I have to try to figure out how to make this architecture work with, a lot of brownfield. That means that I'm probably putting a lot of middleware in place. I'm doing a lot of integration to try to get those things to publish to the broker in real time. So I have to either historize before it hits the broker, or I have to send it to the broker, then historize later. I'm a fan of historizing before, personally. I like the idea of having the history as close to the source as possible and to remove jumps, right? So I could historize and then pull history in near real time, abstract the name, and then publish to the broker, right? That's an option as well. I lose a little bit of that real time. So the answer is probably somewhere in between, right? Based on the use case. What type of data do I care about moving as fast as possible through that chain? What we're talking about doing is identifying the data that's most important for updating in real time and pushing that to the broker. Maybe also splitting that stream off and historizing it at the same time. So instead of historizing on the backside of the broker, pushing to the broker and also creating a separate historical stream from that PLC. So think of it as maybe a dual feed, if you will, just as an idea. But then also being able to sit on top of the SQL database, the historian, and create a new data set that might represent a metric or a measure or an event, and reshape that and turn around and publish that to the broker as well. So think of it as more of your traditional data ops.
Yeah.
By doing this, it allows me to do a couple of things. That architecture gives me the ability to actually run multiple types of models. I'm not stuck with just one standardized hierarchical model. I can grab data from across many different places, and I can essentially create new information. I can add the context to that information. I can actually execute the analytic, and then I can push that data with its new context and what it represents back to the broker. So that's a nice little extra piece.